Hello and welcome to this edition of Rise Up with Rebecca Seawright on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright, serving the Upper East Side, Yorkville, and Roosevelt Island. Today we have a very important topic and program and guest speakers joining us on the issue of substance misuse, which poses a distinct threat and challenge to America's youth. While young people can access information at unprecedented speed and scale, many lack the resources they trust and will pursue. In fact, the stigma and psychological impacts of substance abuse often discourage young people from seeking help altogether. Medical professionals, health experts, and families agree that we need to do better, and we must do better. As a New York State Assembly member, I've sponsored important legislation and secured funding to support our young people facing substance abuse. We secured $30 million in our 2024 budget to expand mental health services for school-aged children. I'm also co-sponsoring and supporting legislation that establishes integrated community mental health clinics and directs the Board of Education to create programs for at-risk kids and teens. Vital funding and legislation like this supplement the essential work of New York's nonprofit organizations. Today we have Generation S.O.S, one such organization whose goals and efforts I strongly commend. We agree on the need to empower our young people and our teens struggling with substance misuse, a mission that everyone should support. And as such, I am so pleased to welcome our guest to today's show. First up, we have Robin Aviv. She serves as the founder and chair of this organization, a nonprofit leading and helping teens and adults across the country. She started out helping teens from the living room couch, and today operates nationwide in the only peer-to-peer prevention-focused organization that exists. She's engaged in recovery herself and has a personal interest in helping others. We're also joined by the Chief CEO, Jim Hood, and board member who's had a distinguished business career and 4 decades of experience. He serves as the current CEO and board member of Generation S.O.S, which is uniquely led by teens who feel safe to talk to their peers. And with the leadership team and board support, since the death of his son, Austin, from an overdose in October of 2012, Jim has devoted his time to helping teens and parents understand and overcome the profound stigma surrounding this crisis. He urges Americans to tackle this issue head on, emphasizing prevention, as with other serious illnesses. So Jim, we thank you today, and Robin, for coming on the show. And Robin, tell us a little bit about your motivation in forming and founding this organization.
Sure, thank you. Yes, well, what happened was there were 6 overdoses in our New York City school community in a period of 3 months. And we all watched as none of the schools did anything in response. And why? The stigma. None of the schools wanted people to think that they had a problem, but of course they all have a problem because the problem is everywhere.
Right.
And so the schools didn't want to address it, but the students wanted to hear what happened, the parents wanted to hear what happened, so we started meeting organically in a living room, just happened to be mine. And what was interesting was that we brought in young people who had been down that path of mental health challenges, which led to substance misuse, and then addiction, and then recovery. And these young kids could share to this audience of kids what their journeys look like, and really, really focus on the mental health challenges that led them down this path of destruction. So there was something for every kid in the audience to relate to, whether or not they ever had a drink or drug in their life or not. And then those students, speakers would give coping skills so that these kids would have ways of coping without going to the substance as the quick fix. And we watched as the room lit up and as a result of this, we started bringing the messages to the schools. And we did it not because I went in there and presented this idea, because the schools didn't want to hear from me, but the students from the audience went back to their schools and said, I want to start a Generation SOS school
Fabulous.
club.
That is so good. So good. Oh my gosh, Robin. I just feel that this is such a wonderful organization and you're doing such great work. And, you know, young people feel comfortable talking to their peers. And it's hard to believe that nothing like this exists around the country. So I just can't commend you enough for starting this from your living room couch, and now look at it today, it's grown. And Jim, so you're the CEO and of the organization. Tell us a little bit about your passion and the mission.
Well, thank you for having us, by the way. As you can imagine, losing a child is very, very difficult. And in this case, Austin struggled for almost 7 years. And ironically, you know, I'll spare you a lot of the detail, but he was doing much better. And then I got that phone call in the middle of the night that changes your life. And I took some time after Austin's death to, frankly, try to figure out why that journey was so difficult, why it was hard to get help, who to talk to, where to go. I mean, it's tragic, but if someone is diagnosed with cancer or heart disease, you know exactly what to do, where to go, who to call. And this thing is just a black hole. And I realized at that time, and I was fortunate to have common friends with Robin, and we became very, very fast friends because of this common cause. But there's no American Cancer Society or American Heart Association or diabetes or Alzheimer's for this space. There is no organized organization, no organized effort. And clearly, we needed one. The country needed one. And so we came together and decided to build this thing out nationally. And we knew the peer-to-peer aspect was going to be key. And we were proven right, maybe a little lucky, but right. And the response really has been remarkable.
That's wonderful, and I appreciate so much the two of you stepping up and sharing your stories and your motivation and your passion. And I understand too that you have a video that we're going to see a clip of that's very powerful about the mission of the organization.
I always get a little nervous before I speak, but this is kind of a different setting to speak in, obviously, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to just sharing my story with you guys.
Telling them every secret I had kept from them from the time I was 12. And, you know, in that I don't know what you call it, during that time, during those 4 hours, I asked for help and I told them, you need to get me help. Like, I need to be taken out of school. I'm not okay. I hadn't asked for help since I was 12 years old.
Symptoms of depression for the first time. And I think that's when it took a darker turn. I discovered that my mother had had a lot of surgeries for limbs and joints, and so she had a lot of painkillers in her closet. And I started to experiment with that, and by 13 I had overdosed for the first time. And
that was so far from the truth, like so far. My life today is greater than I ever could have imagined.
What a wonderful video. This really is something that mandatorily should be shown in all the schools across the country, and especially in New York State. It's just so important that our young people and our kids get help and know where to turn. And like you said, this is really filling a deep void and a hole because something like this doesn't exist. And so this legislative session, I will be sponsoring a resolution talking about this, bringing awareness to your organization and really spreading the word. And so I'm looking forward to having both of you in Albany this session at the Capitol, and potential additional funding that we can fight for in our state budget to support this. And so talk to me about some of the challenges that the organization faces and that our viewers can be helpful in spreading the word so that it gets out in more schools.
So, our challenge has been sort of getting into schools across the country, and New York is where we have our largest presence, but we just need students that are currently at those schools to take an interest in bringing us to their schools, because that's been the way that we've been most successful in terms of getting into the schools. And once we're there, what's so great about our program is we will do an assembly for the school, and then the conversation will continue. It's not a one and done with the Generation S.O.S. School Club, where the club will meet monthly or twice a semester, whatever works for that school environment. And I will keep the conversation going. The other thing that's so unique about what we do is that we're in the prevention space. So we're not about recovery. We try to get the message to these students before they make those difficult, sometimes life-threatening choices, so that they're aware of what the risks are. When opiates came on the scene, that was when things really went awry and kids started dying. But now there's fentanyl. It's even worse. One time out where somebody experiments with something could be a death threat. And we want students to know, be aware of what can happen so they don't go down that path.
And communication is just so key. And that's exactly what your organization is doing. Communication is just education and awareness before the person takes that first step. And so, Jim, what has been your experience with the organization in really getting that message out?
Well, the experience has been terrific. I mean, it's been very fulfilling. It's remarkable. When we do a school assembly, we're complete strangers to the audience. And 48 or 52 minutes later, whatever school period is, you said we've created a safe community. Invariably, some of the students will come up to us afterwards and they really pour their hearts out with their own stories, with their own problems, their own fears. Some saying, I need to go to treatment, or I really have a problem. And we're the first people they have told, which is, I think, really quite stunning. And
that they've felt comfortable enough to share their own personal journey, and that they need help, need attention, or prevention. And
there's been a real, Robin touched on it, but there's been a real seismic shift. The language is who's at risk, what kids are at risk. The answer today is everybody. And a lot of parents, I think, don't realize that. We never condone any use of anything, but we don't preach abstinence because we lose relevance if we do that. But it's really something that 2/3, or I think now more than 70% of all overdoses involve fentanyl, which means in many cases this person did not have a sustained or chronic drug issue, substance issue. They might have been at a party. They might have been celebrating. They might have been the captain of the football team who just won the state championship. Never do we say it's a good idea. The guy had one pill and he died, or the girl had one pill and they died. So the risk is vastly greater than kids understand, and it's exponentially greater than parents understand, because when they were that age, it was a completely different landscape. I mean, to be blunt, it was mostly drinking and weed, and we run into endless numbers of parents who say, look, that's what I did in school, maybe I shouldn't have, but I'm okay. And if my kids are doing the same thing, they'll be okay. Well, maybe, but maybe not, because the kids are starting earlier, and opioids weren't on the scene a generation ago. and heroin is plentiful and cheap, and now fentanyl, and the next thing called tranq, which is 50 times more powerful than fentanyl. So it's a lot of education to the kids and the parents.
So do you have any facts or statistics on how prevalent this issue is around the country or in New York State among our student population?
We do. We don't have state-by-state data, but the truth is it's everywhere, as you alluded earlier. The New York Times, a reporter named Nicholas Kristof, actually did some work on this a couple of years ago, and he discovered that we lose as many people in America every 2 weeks to alcohol, drugs, and suicide as we lost in 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. Every 2 weeks. And what that amounts to is approximately 500, mostly young people, a day in America. It's stunning that it isn't the leading story on the news every night, forever, because 500 a day is a medium-sized school disappearing every day in America. It's a medium-sized city every year in America. It's the largest airplane mankind has ever built, falling out of the sky every day with no survivors. I mean, most people have no sense of the scale and devastation of this problem or potential problem,
right. The magnitude
which is why
huge.
we focus on prevention.
And I just wanted to add to this, education is such a big part of what we do. And, a lot of the times this starts because somebody has an injury. Sports injury is the #2 reason that kids become addicted to opioids, and it's prescribed by doctors, and all with great intentions, but they don't realize that after 3 days, the body can start to become addicted. The other, the #1 reason that kids become addicted to opiates today is wisdom teeth extraction. And I never knew that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is just education for the kids and for the parents so that they are aware when their kid is going in for some type of surgery, really what to expect and how to put some guardrails on it.
Right, absolutely. And, maybe we can focus on some legislation to direct the State Department of Health to put out the education for someone that's going for a wisdom tooth extraction to receive a pamphlet, or their parents, a brochure from their physician or their dentist or surgeon, so that they're aware, just to raise that consciousness level about, so that the prevention and the consciousness raising is there. And so I'm sure that we'll have some interesting discussions down the road on potential legislation and information that we can help with in Albany at our state capitol.
Well, we would be so grateful, and we'll be right behind you, supporting you in every way we can. Without getting too wonky, I think parents need to understand there is the path that Robin talked about of someone taking opioids and sadly becoming addicted. But there's that other path of just a one-time overdose. And it just has made this issue much more complicated, because like I said, now really almost everybody is at risk potentially. And we need to get that message out to parents.
Right. And I like what you said about the airplane falling out of the sky. There's no survivors.
Every day.
And with this issue, it's just so huge. What you're doing is just fabulous.
And if I might, it's starting younger too, which we didn't really talk about, but we hear too many instances of kids having trouble in middle school. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
Right.
So we increasingly take our message to middle schools as well.
Right. Right.
And I just wanted to also add, and you asked about, during the pandemic, did things get worse? And of course, because of fentanyl, they did. But also because of the isolation that kids were experiencing. And it's any type of uncomfortability. Adolescents tend to try to do something for the quick fix. And one of the things that is so beneficial with our program is that our speakers talk about coping skills that they've learned. So when they feel lonely, depressed, isolated, whatever it is that's making them feel uncomfortable, which every adolescent goes through something like that, they provide coping skills that our audience can participate in, whether it's meditation, whether it's helping a friend, whatever it is, doing exercise, meditating, something
Breathing exercise.
something that they can do instead of reaching for that drug as the quick fix. And I think that's one of the most important things, that kids don't realize there's so many other things they can do to change their mood or get out of their discomfort. And we really spend a lot of time talking about that with our audiences.
Research shows that a little bit more than half of all adolescents will have a serious mental health challenge during their school years, over half. So again, a message to parents: everybody thinks it can't happen to their child, but if it happens to 1 out of every 2, it can happen to your child. And Robin said something very important, that very few kids just start drinking excessively or using drugs. It almost always starts with some other loneliness, depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, bullying, which is not a mental health issue, but it certainly can lead to mental health issues, and then the substances. So we have to get at those underlying mental health challenges. Why kids are so stressed? Why are they feeling alone?
Exactly, and unravel some of these issues. And just hearing peer-to-peer, I think, speaks volumes, because there's that comfort level. We also have a video that you've brought to the show today that shows testimonials that's very powerful. And so I'd like to just cut away and show a little of the video with the testimonials from the students.
I remembered my first way of coping was I would daydream. I would find a little dark nook in a closet or build a little fort underneath blankets and just pretend I was somewhere else and pretend I was someone else, anyone but myself, and I was living a life that was not my own. And I knew at that time, when I was a senior in high school, that alcohol meant freedom and it meant happiness.
Middle school sucked. In 7th grade, I tried to kill myself because of all the amount of bullying I was experiencing. I just was at 12 years old, I was I'm done. I've seen enough. And more when I share about that, it makes me so sad to think that at that age, I was ready to throw in the towel. And I think that the mental aspect of addiction is so powerful that sometimes it manifests much earlier than when you start using.
I would say the only thing that maybe I wish I had when I was younger is, a more honest relationship with my parents, and that my parents had a healthier relationship with alcohol and drugs. There is such thing as normal drinking, and it's not this evil bad thing, but in my mind, it kind of got muddled up. So when I started to experiment with drugs and alcohol, I thought I was experimenting with this evil, dark thing. So I didn't want to talk about it.
7 years ago, I lost my oldest son, Austin, to an overdose, and he had struggled with addiction for over 6 years, and it was an anguishing journey, and it was very, very tough, obviously, on him. We lost a beautiful boy. It was very tough on our family, and I decided I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life to this work, to try to spare other young adults and spare their families from going through what we went through.
I heard Jim's story, and I knew that we had to do this journey together. And we both came from different sides of the journey. Jim tragically lost his son, and I went through my own addiction and watched all of these other kids die around us. And in both cases, it was sort of the same feelings of people living in isolation. And so by all of us getting together and sharing our stories, nobody is alone, and everybody realizes that they have not only the similar feelings, but they have something to offer to help other people.
So we first opened up the dialogue surrounding addiction 5 years ago, following 6 tragic overdoses in our New York City school community. And ever since, we've met monthly to hear young, sober speakers share their story, followed by a discussion about the realities of drugs and alcohol for adolescents.
So we're really excited. We now have chapters in Miami and LA in addition to New York. We also have a lot of school clubs, and we're hoping to expand even more to further cities and communities.
At Generation S.O.S, we really do believe that stories speak louder than statistics.
If I had something like Generation S.O.S or knew about that, it would have been helpful for me to not feel so, I don't want to say stigmatized, but feel weird about what was going on in my life.
I think growing up, especially through high school and stuff, at least when I was there, it's for some reason, it's being yourself is always frowned upon, you know what I mean? And you always put on these personas. And now I through this process, I've learned to be myself and love myself for who I am, that, you know, now I don't crave these substances to help me escape from me.
It's important to share my experience. It creates a humanity and a bond between people. If you listen to and empathize with someone who's maybe has similar issues in some departments, but is different in outside departments.
I'll end it by saying that you're enough, you're adequate, you deserve to be loved, you deserve your place in the world. Black, white, green, woman, tall, short, whatever, trans, whatever, you deserve to be loved, and you deserve your place in the world.
I wish I could tell you that when you lose a child, it gets easier over time. It doesn't. You learn to love that child in a different way. This is a picture of Austin that I keep on my desk all the time. I think of him every day. I talk to him every day. I listen to a couple recordings of his voice that I have, but it doesn't get better, and you don't forget. And that's why I'm so motivated to help other parents avoid that. It is said that's the greatest pain you can experience on earth, is to lose a child. And I suspect that's true.
Addiction kills, prevention saves lives. Please go to generationsos.org and make a monthly contribution to help us continue saving young lives. Thank you.
Thank you. The video really, really shows how much you've grown over the years, and what a powerful message to be getting out. Again, I just commend both of you so much for coming on the show today, and I thank Generation SOS founder and director, our guest Robin Aviv, and the Chief Executive Officer and Board Member Jim Hood for sharing their personal stories and the mission of this very important organization. They're doing tremendous advocacy, and I want to thank our viewers for watching and tuning in today to Rise Up with Rebecca Seawright on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Good night.